Good afternoon, everyone. We have a few more that I thought were going to make it. I'm going to wait a couple more minutes. And unmute you guys. Well, come on. Oh, maybe not. Well, I was going to try to leave it unmuted for such a small group, but it's really got a lot of static in there. Okay. I apologize for you having to look at my entire screen. For some reason, when I go to the PowerPoint slide view mode, the whole screen turns black. I'm not sure why that is happening. But we'll go on and get started. Good afternoon and welcome to Operation Snowball's webinar presentation, Best Practices for Implementing Operation Snowball. It's presented by myself. I'm the Operation Snowball Program Manager, Jo Davies. I'm a certified senior ATODA Preventionist and certified peer program educator. I am responsible for providing leadership and management for Operation Snowball. I also provide training and technical assistance to over 120 OS chapters. The position requires me to keep abreast of nationally recognized evidence-based practices and trends in youth culture as they relate to the field of prevention through the review of articles, research studies, attendance at conferences and trainings, and peer communications. I work with the Board of Directors in implementing OS policies and procedures. It looks like I'm going to have to keep us in listen-only mode. At the end of the presentation, you'll be able to ask questions. You can raise your hand, and there is a chat function that we can use if you have, a question during the presentation. Well, it's not going to look good on the next slide. Oh, we did the second. I'm sorry about that. Here's our agenda, and this agenda is actually the sections that are in the Prevention Resource Guide for Operation Snowball chapters. I'm not going to read them, but that's what they are, is each chapter, and we'll go through them as we go along. All of these individual parts fit together to become a comprehensive prevention process. OS applies key elements to plan, implement, and evaluate an OS program and event. These elements we'll discuss, as we go through the training, but it's become a comprehensive program. Years ago that Snowball started, it was just an event and drug-free places to go, like after school or on the weekends. But now we've come into a full-blown prevention program where we are community change agents. Section 1 will identify the main sections of the related guide, a list of features of the resource guide, identify ways that OS is considered in the whole prevention process, program, and event, list the foundational beliefs of OS, emphasize the no-use message, and identify the age-appropriate models that we use. OS originally initiated as an event, but it's expanded its scope through the years. It's become more of a comprehensive program. It's planned, coordinated group of prevention activities, the result of a process that includes involvement by the entire community. It has a process of year-round programming. The program is a comprehensive group of planned activities. An event is an overnight weekend event when we're talking about our programming. The foundational beliefs are listed there, but OS began in 1977 through the efforts by several Rockford area youth and adults who attended the Illinois Teen Institute, which is now the Sabrina Goodman Teen Institute. The group saw an opportunity to develop a program focusing on youth leadership and empowerment through adapting the ITI model to local community needs. The name Operation Snowball is based on the idea that if I have a positive impact on you, you can have a positive impact on someone else, and the effect snowballs. Out of this concept emerges a community of caring. OS is committed to the belief that youth and adults can make responsible decisions when provided with factual information and opportunities to understand oneself and motivations. Youth and adult partnership is a very important part of Operation Snowball. Operation Snowball has been planned and implemented by youth with adults in advisory roles since its beginning. The adult-youth partnership is critical to the Operation Snowball success. Adults play the role of a bridge builder, laying groundwork for youth to deal with issues like ATODA use, suicide, sexual pregnancy, or depression. Adults may have a clear understanding of how the role is order effectively help the youth feel empowered and allow them to develop their ownership of the program. OS promotes a no-use message and does not promote responsible use of ATODs. Operation Snowball can be an excellent foundation program to a more comprehensive prevention effort, as well as a complement to other programs that are the focal point in a comprehensive effort. Ongoing year-round activities may be as simple as meeting on a weekly basis to share thoughts, feelings, and ideas, to planning activities like dances, fundraisers, outings, or trainings and program experience for others like Snow Flurry, Snowflake. Ongoing meetings provide insights on topics of peer pressure, alcohol awareness. We just did Red Ribbon Week, that are priorities to address in the program. The philosophy and purpose support an ongoing youth and adult partnership designed to promote growth, leadership skills, and healthy decision-making, providing community-based prevention and health activities. Operation Snowball is governed by a volunteer board of directors who, among other things, provide direction for the continued growth and enhancement of Operation Snowball. These are our age-appropriate models. Snowcap is our model for senior citizens. Operation Blizzard is a model for families and adults. Segway is 18 to 22-year-olds, and Operation Snowball is for high school youth, and that's our most popular program. Operation Snowflake is for middle schools. Operation Snow Flurry is for preschool and elementary. The Operation Snowball family consists of many parts. In 1987, it started with a steering committee, and it's a nonprofit organization. It's affiliated with IADDA, and at that time we incorporated the name of Operation Snowball, Inc. It's branched out into many chapters in the U.S., Illinois, Indiana, Wisconsin, New York, and Ohio. And we have actually expanded to Lithuania, Poland, and Russia. And there's some discussion going on with our international chapter group that is talking to Israel. Staff members provide training and technical assist to existing chapters and to organizations seeking to become chapters. We provide training, serve as a link between the chapters and the board of directors, try to stay updated on current trends and activities. The Illinois Alcoholism and Drug Dependence Association, IADDA, supports Operation Snowball by providing staff, housing, resources. IADDA is a statewide advocacy organization representing prevention, treatment, and recovery agencies in Illinois. The Sabrina Goodman Teen Institute is a week-long resident leadership camp for high school-age youth and middle school. We did middle school for the first time this past summer. It was a lot of fun. Adult volunteers staff the week as co-facilitators and care team members, and ITI provides the ground for training and action planning for when the groups go back to school. We are a member of the Community Anti-Drug Coalitions of America, with CADCA as the nation's leading drug abuse prevention organization. We are a founding member of the National Association of Teen Institutes. It's a professional membership organization of youth leadership programs throughout the country. Okay, this is the second chapter in the manual. proactive process that empowers individuals and systems to meet the challenges of life events and transitions by creating and reinforcing conditions that promote healthy behaviors and health and lifestyles. By providing information on ATOD issues, developing life skills, training those youth impactors, providing alternatives, and changing social policy norms. And strategies at work. Information dissemination, increase in knowledge and changes attitudes through communications. This method of learning is mainly one way, such as a classroom, speakers, or media campaigns. Prevention education is a two-way approach to teaching participants important social skills. These skills can include resisting pressures to drugs, looking at the intent behind advertising, or developing other skills used in making healthy choices. Positive alternatives provide fun, challenging, and structured activities with supervision so people have constructive and healthy ways to enjoy free time and learn skills. These alcohol and drug-free activities help people, particularly our youth, stay away from situations and encourage use of ATOD. Environmental strategies are aimed at settings and conditions in which people live, work, and socialize. These strategies call for changes in policies to reduce risk and increase protective factors. For example, tighter zoning restrictions on alcohol outlets or stronger enforcement to prevent underage drinking, purchases in alcohol and tobacco products. These changes are carried out at community level and they can have a sweeping impact. Community-based process expands resources such as community coalitions to prevent substance use and abuse. Organizing, planning, and networking are included in this strategy to increase the community's ability to deliver effective prevention and treatment services. Identification of problems and referral to services determine when the behavior of persons who are at high risk or who may have started using alcohol, tobacco, and drugs can be reversed through education or other interventions. The Strategic Prevention Framework is a strategic, planning process that understanding your community's risk and protective factors is the only part of that process with evidence-based prevention. Best practices involves using the planning framework, which uses data to make informed decisions about what types of interventions are best suited to address substance abuse and its related problems in the community. The Strategic Prevention Framework, or the SPIF as we call it, the planning model consists of 5 components that connect to creating a continuous cycle. The 5 steps are assessment, where we collect data to define the problem, resources, and readiness within a geographic area to address needs and gaps. Capacity, to mobilize and or build capacity within a geographic area to address needs. Planning, develop a comprehensive strategic plan that includes policies, programs, and practices, creating a logical, data-driven plan to address problems identified in step 1. Implementation of evidence-based prevention programs, policies, and practices, and evaluations where we measure the impact of SPIFs and the implemented programs, policies, and practices. I'd like to use this as an example of using a strategic plan when, what steps are taken for changing a bike tire, and that shouldn't be like that, but it is. The first one here where you look at it and you see that the tire, is flat, you see the problem, that's the assessment. And then you need to determine what tools to get and how you, need to build and replace that tire. So that is building capacity. Decide what to remove first are your steps, so making a plan. And then changing the tire is implementing it, and then determining if it's right and trying to write it is in the evaluation stage. I apologize for the yucky slide. The framework for guiding principles. Prevention is a continuum. It ranges from deterring diseases and behaviors that foster them to slowing the onset and severity of illnesses when they do arise. Prevention is prevention. The method of prevention are the same for many diseases, whether the aim is to prevent or reduce the effects of cancer or to prevent or reduce the effects of substance abuse. In both cases, Prevention strategies take aim at how people think, feel, and act by focusing messages and activities on areas of influence such as the individual, family, or community. Successful prevention decreases risk factors and enhances protective factors. For many health issues, the same conditions increase while other factors can shield people from these problems. Prevention strategies should use proven practices within that system to work. Research and experience have produced highly effective prevention programs to reduce risk and promote protective factors. Systems of prevention services work better than isolated efforts. The best prevention results come from partnerships. Without teamwork, even the most determined prevention efforts can fall short of their goals. Sharing information and tools, access across service systems can make prevention efforts more accountable and effective. The framework can help federal agencies, states, and communities identify common needs and risk factors, target outcomes to be achieved, and adopt tools to measure and track results. The framework calls for coordinated funding and development of systems. Substance abuse should be addressed comprehensively through multiple strategies across multiple sectors with both public and private sector resources. We like to use the heart disease model to help participants, and especially our youth, understand the relationship of risk factors and prevention. You know, the risk factors, we would, don't normally do this with the youth on flip chart paper and so forth, and ask what those risk factors would be: poor nutrition, smoking, alcohol, lack of exercise, stress, genetics, and then you would go on to the protective factors of eating healthy habits, no smoking, no drinking, regular exercise, healthy stress release, education and understanding of genetics. And some of our risk factors. And some protective factors. And let's see if I can get to, we have a poll. I can't see that. Okay, let's see from, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this because I can't see the screen the way it's acting. No. Again, I'm sorry, because they're not going to work with it acting up either. Well, another way to understand environmental prevention is through a model known as the public health triangle. Any public health issue results from the interaction of three different factors represented by 3 points of the triangle. These factors are the individual, the agent, and the environment. All 3 points of the triangle affect each other and contribute to the character of the public health issue. One factor is the individual, is also known as a host. That's the person who's affected by the public health problem. The second factor is the agent, and that's the substance or condition causing harm to the individual. For instance, when an individual has a flu, a virus might be the agent. The third factor is the environment, which consists of the social, economical, physical, political, and cultural settings in which the individual and drug itself interact. When an individual has a cold, environmental factors contributing to the cold may be unsanitary conditions, inadequate nutrition, physical and emotional stress. When a person is addicted to drugs, environmental contributing factors might include attitudes about use and the users that are in the community, easy availability, peer pressure to experiment, and laws and policies that are not strong enough. Traditional prevention strategies have focused on one side of the public health struggle, telling the individual just to say no to the agent. We have, turned this around doing environmental prevention strategies, going further and asking and fostering the government, which the individual is more likely to say no. To put another way, traditional prevention strategies focus on 2 of the 3 factors in the public health triangle, which focuses on all 3 factors. And I bet this slide isn't going to work either. Come on. stuck? Nope. We do an activity called Roots and Branches, and I apologize again because I don't think it's going to work because I can't get it into the full screen mode. But the public health triangle is an accurate model compared to environment. Most people find it dry and abstract, and concrete exercise illustrating the fundamentals in environment prevention is called Roots and Branches. The goal of this exercise is to present a tree on which the branches represent common problems associated with an issue, while the roots represent the root cause of the problem. To begin this activity, we would ask the group to think about the last time they had the flu and identify the problems of or the symptoms of the flu, things like a runny nose, cough, grumpiness, sneezing, body. Each of these are the symptoms of the flu. And then we would identify the root causes of the flu, things like germs, bacteria, a virus, weak immune system, and so forth. And this next slide shows what that drawing would look like. And we have the symptoms at the top and the root causes at the bottom. And this is what it would look like if we did a diagram of ATOD use. The root causes: peer pressure, depression, relatives using and providing alcohol, boredom, media message, easy access, and the symptoms would be alcoholism, truancy, DUI, car crashes, unplanned sex, violence, death, family problems. I'm going to try to move along here because we're going to run out of time. We do use the Research Institute's 40 assets. They include things like family support, caring neighborhood, self-esteem, resistance skills. The more assets a young person has, the more likely they are to become caring, competent adults. We also address the social and emotional learning standards, which is a process for helping children and adults develop the fundamental skills for life effectiveness. And then, of course, we have to consider the developmental consideration. It's like when you're building a major project, you want to make sure that you put up the tools needed to, like this scaffolding put there first, to provide the support before they get up and work on the building. With our models, we want to make sure that we're using the appropriate ones for the appropriate ages. Okay, section 3, getting started on our snowball prevention process. You need to begin the process by identifying youth and adults interested in prevention in your community. Now's the time to put all these people together. The groups are responsible for prevention assessment, planning, and implementation, and providing leadership. And you can see there where some of the roles come from. A needs assessment is used to understand the nature and extent of a community health or social problem with an intent to respond appropriately. The only way to determine the extent of a community's problem is by data collection. Needs assessment findings are used to make program policy and or budget decisions. Needs assessment strategies should be research-based to permit planning, program, and resources guided to data rather than opinions or political considerations. Completing a needs assessment, there's two kinds of data: archival or data that already exists, in survey data, or data that you create. We do promote the use of the Illinois Youth Survey. It's free for all schools to participate in. We use that data in our own studies too, and I can give you information about that after we're done. Cultural competence. To be an effective and comprehensive prevention program, Operation Snowball must reflect cultural awareness in every aspect of the planning process, as well as program design and implementation. You need to meet specific cultural needs of your audience by introducing a wide range of members of your Snowball chapter and by planning activities and preventions based on the cultures represented at your event. Ask for presenters to address cultural issues, focusing on cultural awareness, diversity, and understanding. Capacity building is more than providing a few educational classes or managing one or two community events to prevent drug use. Capacity building enhances existing community assets, human and structural, in an effort to adapt and evolve community systems to better meet the needs of the entire community. Capacity building occurs on multiple levels, individual, organizational, across the broader community. OS builds capacity through various education and training components that are essential to the programmatic framework. We build organizational capacity by creating a learning environment and encouraging involvement of volunteers and staff who bring about change through their commitment to the principles of the prevention of drug and alcohol use. OS programs can be an important part of any community's overall prevention strategy and capacity building efforts. As part of a comprehensive community-wide prevention efforts, chapters are expected to work with a wide variety of community stakeholders, including community-based prevention providers, local coalitions, health departments, law enforcement, clergy, other youth groups, and others. Strategic planning. Operation Snowball boards strategic goals and objectives to guide the program in 4 domains: individual, peer, school, and community. Those goals are to develop effective life skills, to develop effective peer helpers, to promote drug behavior, encourage coalition building within the school environment, increase community involvement and participation in substance abuse programming. Chapter leaders are then encouraged to develop their own strategic plans, setting goals and objectives that are nested in the broader goals and objectives set by the board. Additionally, each chapter is expected to create goals and objectives based on their community needs assessment. OS youth play a vital role in efforts to empower their peers to be active change agents in their communities. Snowball's belief that youth are capable people who are important resources in their communities, given the training and resources needed to understand current issues and the opportunities to contribute in meaningful ways. Youth are thoroughly capable of assessing needs in their schools and communities and developing and implementing effective health, safety, and wellness initiatives that will have positive impact on their peers and communities. Youth and adult leaders work together to implement a variety of local programs, year-round campaigns, educational weekends, events based on their needs. Participants and staff gather at OS events to hear motivational and our informational speakers discuss the importance and challenge of living in a drug and alcohol-free lifestyle while imparting knowledge, skills, and confidence and inspiration to be drug and alcohol-free. OS chapters also provide knowledge, support, and encouragement through year-round efforts for participants to act as change agents in their communities. Additionally, chapters work on community campaigns such as Red Ribbon Week, Drunk and Drug Driving Month, Alcohol Awareness Month, Drug and Alcohol-Free Prom Night programs, and others. Programs embrace comprehensive strategies to prevent harmful behaviors and promote healthy communities. Program operation. Retreat-type events, 2 to 3 day retreat-like events where participants attend general session and workshops and presentations to hear motivational and inspirational presenters and discuss the importance of drug and alcohol-free lifestyles while strengthening leadership skills and promoting healthy decision-making. Regular scheduled meetings. Chapters meet at least bi-weekly to plan their activities and events, participate in leadership trainings, listen to educational presentations, and take part in drug-free fun activities. Year-round events. Chapters take part in activities and campaigns like Alcohol Awareness Month, Drug and Drug Month, Prevention Month, Red Ribbon Week. The Sabrina Goodman Teen Institute, Operation Snowball, I didn't change it on this slide, works in cooperation with its sister program, CGTI, the Teen Institute, the 5-day leadership development and substance use prevention conference that takes place on a college campus. They do meet in what is called a community action team and CAT, which is geographically a group of students, and a lot of our chapters actually come and they work in the CAP process, and they go back home with an action plan to start with the school year. We already talked about the staff, and the program should be replicated and adapted to other locations. That is one of the good things about Operation Snowball, is its adaptability and flexibility, while providing a framework in which schools and community can develop leadership skills and ATOD programs. We are actually beginning to update this. I'm not going to spend too much time in it, but beginning in 2000, Teen Institute and Snowball began to take steps towards being an evidence-based program. We use the theory of planned behavior, which notes that human action is guided by 6 constructs: behavior beliefs, attitudes, normative beliefs, subjective norms, control beliefs, and perceived control. And according to the theory of planned behavior, increasing the knowledge alone does not help to change behavior. Youth programs seeking to change behaviors must focus on attitudes, perceived norms, and control and altering behavior. We did get a little bit of results. 2000 to 2003, we found significant changes in attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors in Operation Snowball participants. They also found a decrease in use and an increase in resistant factors. This, what year was this? This data from our survey compared to the Illinois Youth Survey with 2004 and 2006 data, and you can see, significant lower alcohol, tobacco, and drug use compared to the statewide norms. Okay, actually getting started. You need to work with the mentor chapter. They are there to help you learn how to go through the process, to help you find resources, to maybe have you come and observe and go through one of their events. They do sign off on your accreditation process. You need to have a liability insurance. D&O is if you're having to pay damages out of their own pockets if you have an actual governing board. Some chapters do have boards like that. Reporting abuse and neglect. We are mandated reporters. We do use a 3 hurt rule, especially when we're training our youth staff, that if a child is being hurt by someone, or is planning on hurting themselves, or has plans to hurt someone else, if that's disclosed, the staff should notify the designated leadership team member as soon as possible, and then we go on from there if we have to call the child abuse hotline. Hugs, physical contact, and behavior. Although many adults and participants feel comfortable showing emotion and hugging each other, not all do. So they have to respect each person's boundaries. Everyone should always ask before hugging a participant and avoid contact if there's no one else around. Well, as with any type of effort that requires support by a participation or attendance, you must use basic marketing principles to ensure success. Information that results from marketing planning efforts is related to fundraising and budgeting. And we'll talk more about that as we go farther. A fact sheet. You want to use a fact sheet in your marketing and in your fundraising. I don't want to read them all to you, and they are in the manual to give you a little bit more details and things that you need to have in there. Marketing plan can be basic or detailed depending on the time and skills that you have available and are willing to invest in the process. Using the action plan that you did earlier as your foundation for the marketing plan, there's no need to start from scratch since so much of that information already exists. In fact, creating a marketing plan is a perfect opportunity to refine your action plan. Promotional materials. You can consider designing and using prevention-oriented theme to your annual plan an event. Youth representatives in the chapter can help determine appropriate themes. And having themes helps to communicate a single and focused message. Use a variety of groups into one group under one umbrella. Motivational phrases, songs, and movie titles are common places to find themes. Often snowball events have a theme song that is played as groups gather for general sessions or the beginning of a new section. Chapters must emphasize prevention in brochures and other materials to prevent image problems. It's very important that you clearly explain that Operation Snowball is a prevention process and program, not a treatment program. It is not a program for kids who do drugs. One of the best proactive steps you can take in protecting your image is to develop good relationships with local media service providers and civic clubs. Working with the media, they can help you publicize your events and activities before they happen to increase participation or gather community support. Covering ATOD prevention issues regularly to educate and inform the community about what your program is doing to address youth ATOD use and meet community needs. You create a broad public awareness about an issue or problem through news stories, statistical reviews, photographs and editorials, letters to the editors, and guest opinions. You need to create a budget to be successful. Each chapter should decide on the level of detail of their budget. Ideally, the budget length should match the length of the plan, generally a minimum of about a year. Oh, and you do need a fiscal agent, and that is most of the time the school or the community-based organization, the ones that just actually write the checks. Fundraising, it can be a little scary at first, but many people agree that having a budget is easier to obtain funds to support it, and fundraising you will know what your fundraising needs to be when you have a budget. 2 ways of support. Asking for contributions for general operating expense or charge participant registration fees for activities and events. Most chapters actually do both. These are some major sources of support. And here you want to identify the supporters in your schools and community. Think about everyone who will be involved or benefit from your activities and figure out who you know best. Ways to contribute. In-kind donations are tangible things, food, printing equipment, personnel, anything that's not money. Co-sponsoring a program or activity, or loaning staff to support activities like presenters or support staff. Asking for money, we encourage a youth and adult team. This helps the youth develop their communication skills, and adult can, of course, provide support. Here's some other approaches. They're your typical fundraising. We do have a no alcohol, tobacco retailer policy. And I'm going to actually read this one to you. Operation Snowball, Inc., its board of directors and its chapter shall not accept awards of recognition, contribution, gifts, or bequests from the tobacco, alcohol, beverage industries whose practices and or products are inconsistent with the health and welfare of children, or from any organization which is supported by the tobacco, alcohol, beverage industries. Scheduling meeting and training events, activities, choosing dates and times are challenging sometimes because of the other scheduled community and school activities, so you really want to get on the calendars as early as you can. Trainings, staff trainings should be held at a time before the event that gives the volunteers and the youth staff time to plan and be ready for their events. You want to make sure you're not competing with other activities at the school and communities, and of course holidays and schedules. Okay, preparing for a snowball event. General planning process can be used to prepare any program for implementation, but a number of planning issues specific to Snowball event must be addressed before the actual event. Here we have our volunteer staff. Managing volunteer staff is responsible at OS events. We do use a leadership team. The Teen Institute has gone over to calling them the care team. If you're, been part of CGTI, it's usually co-directors, support staff, activity coordinators, nurse, and then your staff facilitators. And volunteers come from a wide variety of community sectors, should be role models and committed to drugs-free lifestyle. Chapters should take several steps to ensure that the volunteer staff do not have a history of child abuse or been convicted of a serious crime. You can go as far as to doing background checks through your police department. A lot of, well, if you got school volunteers, they should have already had that done. But, do some background check, do some their employee checks, ask for references. You need to make sure that you have clearly written and stated policies and procedures before your events to avoid problems. You want them verbally presented early in the event. A lot of times chapters do this as a skit, and use a written drug-free contact. Staff orientation and training. The getting to know each other in orientation and training activities helps create a sense of team among the staff who are better able to meet the participant needs. And we use veteran staff for orientation training assistance. All staff should agree to sign a drug-free pledge. Promos and takeaway items, those would go along with your theme. It depends on if you can get sponsorship maybe. And include the youth, of course, in the planning and designing. Transportation, if you're traveling a great distance, it can negatively impact the attendance. It really depends on where you're at. I know chapters that are like in the Chicago suburbs that, they have buses there and they have to go to a 4-H camp. Here in Springfield, where we live, they have their events in their high schools and don't have to travel anywhere. So it just depends, I think, on the situation of each chapter. Other event preparation are participant folders that, have the agenda and any other materials that they might need for the week. Warm fuzzies are one of our traditionals, and I don't know how well you can see in this little picture, but what they're doing is tying warm fuzzies on each other's little neck type thing that's made out of yarn. Of course, the food, and of course, there's always got to be some fun. Registration, you want to advertise well ahead of the event, set up early. Things you need to have are, checklists, name tags, folders, schedule, agendas, nurse and meds, sleeping assignments. Typically with the nurse and medications, we will have them turn their medications over to the nurse when they check in. We actually just use brown paper bag, little lunch bags, put their name on it and do that. And they do med calls several times a day. And it's more for the reason that they don't skip any medicines. And we know what they're taking and they're, not missing out. Sleeping assignments, of course, are always important. Volunteer retention. Sorry. Providing a successful experience is a critical factor in retaining volunteers. Volunteers who believe that they are capable of helping and their investment is worth their effort are much more likely to continue. Let me mute myself here for a second. I need a drink. Okay. Module 6, key elements of the event. The agenda. They can be 3-day weekends, beginning on a Friday and ending on a Sunday afternoon. They can do just 2-day programs. We've had some doing just one-day programs. You know, if you do a snow flurry, it's usually maybe a little bit more than a half a day. Oh, no. He doesn't want to move. The opening session formally begins the event as an opportunity to become familiar with the event, staff, and participants. It's also an opportunity to initially engage participants in an awarding experience. You do a welcome participants, using energy, introducing the staff, briefly going over the agenda. We like to use the skits to emphasize the rules. General sessions. Use that data to determine your topics and research the presenters and ask for processing questions for small groups. You know, when you have a presenter and then they break out and they go into groups to discuss what they just learned about, it's a lot easier when they have some guiding questions to do that and allow plenty of time. For the Teen Institute, we will look at that Illinois Youth Survey data. We'll look at the statewide data to determine what our topics are going to be. Yeah, my videos aren't going to play this way either, I don't think. Shoot. Sorry. Maybe it'll play this way. that was reach communications that we use a lot of, just to show what some of the good general session presenters can be like. And you can always ask them for references. A lot of them do have videos out that you can, watch. We do have a full list in our resources section on the webpage. We don't actually endorse anybody, but there is an opportunity on there for chapter leaders to rate them also. So small group sessions would happen after you had that general session, so you want to make sure that you prepare outlines, including activities, and, of course, when you do your staff training, you go through all of that with your co-facilitators. Come on. Yeah, sorry. We do games, and we use activities that teach. Of course, they're there to relax the group, to break the ice, get them interacting, get them through problem solving. We use icebreakers and energizers to loosen them up. There are some things on the resource CD. Games help build communication, cooperation, trust, involvement with the group. You choose, the appropriate games and activities to reinforce whatever the topic was. Many workshops should address teen issues. There's some listing there. Some chapters will have several to offer, and they actually let the teens, the participants, sign up. I prefer a round robin to where you have 3 or 4 workshops that they rotate through. There's nothing like having a volunteer that is there to do a workshop and nobody shows up, or only a couple. When you're doing activities and trying to do experiential learning and you don't have the right amount of kids in there, it can make your presentation a disaster, like that broken PowerPoint. But of course you need recreation and relaxation. You want to be careful that you don't have competitive activities. You got to remember that you could have disabled youth that are in the groups. We do outdoor adventure activities. You always want to make sure that if they don't want to participate, they don't have to. We do encourage a parent session to be scheduled before the last general session or closing, because you need to explain what their youth have experienced at the event. It should include how to help with prevention efforts of the children. Most of the time these kids are going to go home and they're going to be bouncing off the walls for one thing, and they sleep, and they're very excited. They might be talking in our prevention lingo, and the parents have no idea what they're speaking to. Inviting the participants to the last general session, always a good activity. It gives them some more information about what their kids have been doing. And you want to close the event formally. There's, usually a really intense bonding that has occurred while they've been spending the weekend together, and especially when we do the Teen Institute, when we bring people that are, from totally different areas of the state. And there's many ways to do a closing: presentation, public closing, skits, lots of different ways. Let me try this. Mari, did that video work?
Yeah.
You did? Okay. This is a video from one of our chapters. After Okay. That was the Schaumburg Operation Snowball compilation they made of their event, so they were having a really good time. They're a pretty young group, too, and they are also part of CDTI, and they're their own cat team. And let's wrap this up here. You do want to make sure that you plan a follow-up and a reunion before staff and participant leave for the event. You know, maybe plan a snow flurry or snowflake. Of course, year-round activities, and attend the Sabrina Goodman Training Institute. We don't have dates yet, but they will be coming out. Make sure that you go to our website, www.os-iti.org, and select Join Mailing List to get notifications, which you probably did because I'm right. You wouldn't know about this. Mentoring Operation Snowball, just briefly. The youth need to mentor the younger students in the school. I have seen a lot of chapters that have really suffered when the older students graduate and nobody prepared anybody to take over the leadership. And we already talked about the chapter mentoring earlier, about using them. And we are done. I'm going to unmute. I don't know. Well, I'm going to try to. There will be an evaluation, just 3 or 4 questions that will pop up when we're done. I can't get Brendan to. Well, does anybody have any questions? Well, I'll tell you what, I can't get everybody to come undone and everything there. You can always contact me tomorrow if you have any questions. I apologize for the technical difficulties. It's very aggravating, and I hope you enjoy your evening. Thanks.